This is Technomancer for Zero Point Fuel. I'm still waiting for some parts to build the forms for the axle generator that we're going to put on the cart motor. And while I was doing that, I had all these extra parts, so I put a more traditional Bedini system together, and I used the treadmill motor as the base, thinking, okay, if it's a generator, I can run the power back into the charge side and make surplus energy. At this point, I just finished it today, so I haven't tweaked it out. It's only running on 12 volts. The cart motor, if you've been following it, it runs on 120 volts. So this is really low tech compared to the cart motor. But what I was trying to do is use this as a generator, make enough power to dump back into this 12 volt battery. Traditionally, the coils on the cart motor are 0.009 ohms. These are 7 ohm coils. There's a lot more resistance there. Trigger doesn't have to be so short, more like a traditional Bedini, although I'm still using laminar plates as the core. But really what I wanted to show you is, while this doesn't really work as a generator yet, it'll make 2 or 3 volts, which is about 300 milliamps into the battery. So it compensates a little bit, but not enough to be useful yet. But what I did here is I applied a switch to the motor, ran a diode across the switch so the current won't flow from the battery to the treadmill motor and just run the motor. I want it to act as a generator, so what I did is I applied a diode so the current won't flow that way. But I jumped this switch here, the starter switch. So what that does is this becomes the starter for the pulse motor. When you let up on it and turn the pulse motor on, you don't have to spin the wheel by hand anymore, which is kind of a slick little thing here. But basically this is a normal Bedini circuit from one battery to another battery. Got 2 meters on the 2 batteries, and the motor, which came out of a treadmill, is being fed back into the input battery. So we got an amp meter on it. So I'm going to mount this and show you what we're talking about here. So by holding this button down, the diode's bypassed, current flows back from the battery, and I'll show you the wheel on the other side. But once that's spinning, put that on and she's running. It's that simple. So obviously, using that treadmill motor, which is designed to run at 90 volt at 21 amps, that little 12 volt battery, it's pulling, well, as you can see, it's pulling 12 amps to start the pulse motor, and then it drops down to, about 0.8 amps to operate. So 12 volt system is not, in this configuration, the wheel is so large it doesn't have a lot of oomph to it like your smaller ones do. But what I want to do here is determine the output of the treadmill motor as a generator, tune the Bedini circuitry to match that output to get it to be self-sustaining. So that was the mindset when I built this rig. And basically these are wound as tri-filar coils and quad-filar. So what I have is I have 3 wraps, and in order to, that were 2.4 ohms for each wrap twisted together. And what I did is on the back, I just tied them together. I didn't cut the links because I might hook it up the way the cart motor was hooked up originally. So I didn't want to cut them, but what I did is I just tied them in series. So what that gives me is 7 ohms, 7 ohm coils with a single wrap. And then these are 7 ohms, but they also have a trigger in. So the top 3 here are control, and these are slaves on both sides. So 12 volts is just not enough to spin a wheel that big. And being it's a Bedini, with a higher resistive coil, I really need the 120 volts in this case to get this to work. But, you know, this is the first video on it, so I wanted to give you a look because basically it's a self-starting Bedini generator. The circuitry is just standard, well, my standard Bedini circuit, no NE2 neons, basically just the control chip with the looped 007 1000 volt diode as the jumper diode, and then 6 007 diodes tying the main lead to this copper plate, which is the receiver plate for all the circuit pulses. So that's just a standard treadmill motor. So kind of a first look at this motor. So